My name is Luke. I'm 17, and this is a story I never thought I'd tell. Especially not like this, to strangers on the internet. But I need to get this off my chest before I go crazy. I'm from Savannah, Georgia. Born and raised in an old Victorian house that my grandmother left to my parents when she died. It was a beautiful house on the outside, the kind you see on postcards, with a wooden porch, windows with thick frames, and century-old trees. But inside, there was always a weight in the air, like the house was breathing when no one was watching. My older sister, Ivy, was always different. While I grew up playing games and hanging out with friends, she grew up in her room, in the darkness, listening to music that sounded more like noise than melody, burning incense that smelled like sweet decay, and scribbling symbols on the walls with black chalk. My parents were religious, but the mild kind. Catholics who went to Mass on important holidays. So when Ivy decided, out of the blue, that she didn't want to be complicit with a hypocritical faith anymore, no one took it too seriously, until she said she wanted to follow Luciferianism. It wasn't a joke. She said it while eating spaghetti, with the most innocent face in the world, while our parents nearly choked on the sauce. My dad got up from the table. My mum started crying, but Ivy didn't back down an inch. She just smiled and said, "At least now you know the truth." After that, things changed. Not all at once, but, like rust, it started with her bedroom door being locked all the time. Then came the friends, pale, dressed in black, always with eyes that seemed to dry, like people who see things we don't, and the smell in her room. Jesus, it was like rotten meat mixed with cheap perfume and wet soil. Whenever she left, I'd sneak in there to see what she was hiding. I know, I was a kid, curious, invasive. But what I saw one of those times changed everything. She had a makeshift altar with red candles, a distorted image of an angel with its face covered in nails, and in the center, a thick glass jar. Inside, there was something that I swear on everything that is holy. A black chicken with its eyes open, trapped in there still alive. At the base of the jar, coarse salt. A photo of a man I had never seen, and a piece of paper with something written in a language that didn't seem Latin. It was like something that is whispered, not read. When I got closer, the chicken looked at me. It blinked, slowly, as if it was begging. And then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I almost fell from the shock. It was Ivy. My fingers were trembling. The jar slipped from my hand and fell to the floor. It broke. The chicken died instantly, without a sound. She gave me the biggest scolding of my life. She pushed me, scratched me, said that I interrupted something important, that it was a work in progress, that now the entity would turn against her, or against me, I swear to God, or to anything that still listens. That she said that with hatred in her eyes, but a smile on the corner of her mouth. A smile that wasn't hers. I wanted to tell my parents, but they were already blind. The truth is, after that conversation about her cult, it seemed like they just stopped caring. My mom spent the day making cakes that no one ate, and my dad was glued to old news broadcasts as if he was hypnotized. It was like she had done something to them. A spell, manipulation, I don't know. I started writing everything down. My nightmares. The way she talked to herself at night, in languages I've never heard. The whispers in the hallway at 3 a.m. The sound of something scratching the basement walls. And the eyes of my dog, which stopped shining after he went into her room and came out whimpering as if he had seen hell itself. One day, I couldn't take it anymore and went to the city's parish. I spoke with Father Ben, An old man who had known my family since before I was born. He listened to me with serious eyes. He didn't call me crazy. He didn't laugh. He just gave me a small bottle of holy water and said, "Sprinkle this throughout the whole house, especially where she steps." That's what I did. And that's when everything really started to escalate. When I entered her room again with the glass in my hand, my heart in my throat, and my soul wanting to run, I saw something in the corner, something tall, something that moved even though it was standing still. A shadow the size of a man, with horns that seemed to move with the house's breathing. I didn't go in any further. I just threw the water from where I was, and the thing screamed, not with sound, with presence, with hatred. I went back to my room and stayed locked there until late in the afternoon. When my mum arrived, she climbed the stairs as if she had woken up from a nightmare, and she opened Ivy's door. What she saw in there made my mum vomit. She threw half of the things in a black bag, crying, screaming at my sister to get out of the house, begging for forgiveness for letting it grow in there. But the damage was already done. My sister was changing on the inside, and the house with her. My mum cleaned Ivy's room, as if she was trying to exorcise the entire house with her own hands. She threw everything away. The jars, the candles, the images, the papers. She didn't want to know if it had value or not. She threw it and cried at the same time. My parents finally seemed to wake up from that trance they had fallen into. But Ivy was different. She didn't scream. She didn't break anything. She didn't threaten to leave home. She just looked at us with disdain. A look of someone who knew there was no turning back, that she didn't need to scream anymore because she had already planted what she needed. After that day, she stopped talking to anyone in the house. She started going out at night. She would come back in the early hours of the morning with mud on her feet and marks on her neck, like scratches, but too deep, too thin. And even when she stayed inside the house, her room seemed inhabited by someone else. I say that because sometimes when I walked down the hallway, I would hear two breaths inside. One was hers. The other was deeper, wetter, as if something huge was hidden under the bed, waiting. I couldn't sleep properly anymore. My room, which was next to hers, started to smell like sulfur. One night, I woke up with something hitting the outside of my window. I thought it was a branch, until I saw that there wasn't a tree there. That same night, my dog, Max, started barking towards the hallway. Out of nowhere, he growled at the emptiness, tucked his tail between his legs, and peed on the rug, something he never did. Then he ran to my room, jumped on the bed, and stared at the door. I tried to calm him down, but the air was freezing and heavy, like when a storm is about to break, but without any clouds in the sky. The next day, I took the photo of my parents, the one from the jar that I grabbed before my mum cleaned Ivy's room. Back to Father Ben. He looked at it, made the sign of the cross, and said, "Your home needs more than holy water. It needs liberation." We set a day for him to go there and bless the house. He arrived on a Friday afternoon with a crucifix, a pot of blessed salt, and an old book with a faded cover. He said it was going to be simple, just to break the spiritual bonds left there. But when we arrived at Ivy's room, the priest's crucifix fell to the floor on its own. He hadn't even started the prayer. He just put his foot on the doorstep, and the cross he was holding jumped out of his hand, as if it had been ripped away. His expression changed. He looked at me and said softly, "There's something here that has already fed. This is going to be harder than I thought." We spread salt around the room, and he began the prayers. The door was open, but the interior seemed in motion. The walls seemed to breathe. The curtain was shaking, even without wind. And the smell, my God, it was as if something was dying inside, but still trying to stay alive. And then came the noise, a dry crack, as if something had cracked inside the wall. The priest continued praying, but with a trembling voice. Max's barking came from downstairs, frenetic. My dad ran upstairs, saying that Ivy wasn't home. My mum was paralyzed on the stairs, just watching from afar, hugging a Bible that had never been opened. That's when we heard the voice. It wasn't my sister's. It was deep, slurred, with an accent that didn't even seem human. It spoke words that no one understood, but the tone was like a threat embedded in every syllable. The priest stopped praying for a second and murmured, "This isn't just any spirit, it's an invitado." She let it in, invited in English. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, closing in his face, almost tearing off the man's finger. The lights flickered throughout the house. Max stopped barking and started crying, literally crying like a child, high-pitched, desperate. I swear I heard footsteps on the ceiling, heavy, as if someone was walking on their knees, dragging something. When we managed to open the door, Ivy was there, standing in the middle of the room, with her back to us. She didn't turn around. She just said, "You should have left things the way they were." Father Ben left the house, saying he would return with another priest, one who understood this type of case. My mum was crying non-stop. My dad tried to feign control, but I knew that the thing wasn't just in Ivy's room anymore. It was in us. That night, my dad had a nightmare and woke up screaming. He said he saw Ivy floating above his bed with black eyes, and that she was whispering things in my mum's ear. My mum didn't remember anything, but when I looked at her neck, there was a scratch, 3 parallel lines, red, still fresh, like claws. Ivy, she was sleeping on the couch, and when I asked if she remembered anything, she just smiled. That damn crooked smile. It was just a dream, Luke. You need to relax. But it wasn't a dream. It was the beginning of something bigger, and it was too late to escape. You know when you think everything is over, but there's something that insists on whispering in the dark. Well, that's it. Things here at home never really went back to normal. They just silenced for a while. My sister became more reserved for months. And even with the help of therapists and the priest who returned sporadically to bless the house, there were days when her room still seemed to breathe on its own. I swear I've heard it, inhaling, as if the walls were pulling air from the hallway. The most bizarre part was when my sister started sleeping with the door ajar again. I thought it was a good sign, that maybe she was trying to get closer, to show that she wasn't hiding anything anymore. But one night I passed by her room to go to the bathroom, and I saw something that I still doubt was real. She was lying down, on her back, immobile, but between her and the wall, there was someone. A shadow crouched there, as if watching her. The eyes, if I can call them that, were dark and deep holes, but they shone like burning coal. And when I got closer, the shadow looked straight at me. It didn't move, it didn't attack, but I felt it enter inside me, just with that look. I was paralyzed for seconds. When I managed to move, I ran to my parents' room. I told them everything. They looked at me with pity. They said it was just a nightmare, but it wasn't. Since then, I've started feeling strange things, like I'm being watched. Not by something on the outside, but on the inside. As if a presence has lodged itself in me, waiting for the right moment. Sometimes I wake up with scratches on my chest. Sometimes I hear my sister whispering words in Latin in the middle of the night, even while sleeping. She's improved, they say. But that shadow, it never left.